The leather-bound diary felt wrong in my hands, like holding someone else's secrets without permission. But Grandma Hazel had left it for me, tucked away in that old cedar chest she always kept locked. The key had arrived in yesterday's mail, 3 months after her funeral, with a note that simply read, "When you're ready, Audrey." I traced my fingers over the worn cover, sitting cross-legged on my bedroom floor. The house was quiet except for the muffled voices downstairs, Mom and Mark having another one of their private discussions that always seem to be about money these days. "We can't keep pretending everything's fine," Mom's voice carried through the heating vent. "The bills are piling up, Anne." "Linda, trust me," Mark cut in, his tone smooth as always. "Once we sort out Hazel's estate." "That money is for Audrey's college fund," Mom snapped. "We can't touch it. We're family. Family shares responsibilities." I clicked open the diary's brass clasp, my stomach churning. The pages were filled with Grandma's elegant handwriting, each entry dated meticulously. My eyes caught on a passage from 2 years ago. "Mark isn't what he seems. I've seen how he watches Audrey's trust fund grow, like a wolf eyeing prey. Linda's too blinded by his charm to see it, but I won't let him touch my granddaughter's future. Some people wear masks so convincing, they fool even themselves." My hand started shaking. I flipped through more pages, finding scattered warnings like breadcrumbs leading to something darker. "Emily's becoming his perfect little puppet," another entry read. "Poor girl doesn't realize she's just another pawn in his game. But Audrey. She has her father's spine of steel, even if she doesn't know it yet." A knock at my door made me jump. "Audrey?" Emily's voice, sweet as saccharin. "Dinner's ready." "Coming," I called back, quickly sliding the diary under my mattress. Downstairs, the tension hung thick as fog. Mark sat at the head of the table, carving the roast with precise movements. Emily perched beside him, her perfect posture matching his. Mom kept glancing between her plate and Mark, her shoulders tight. "So, Audrey," Mark said, passing me the potatoes. "Have you given any more thought to what we discussed? About pooling the family resources?" I stabbed a potato harder than necessary. "You mean about using my college funds to bail out your investment mistakes?" "Audrey!" Mom's fork clattered against her plate. "It's okay, Linda," Mark smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Audrey's just concerned about her future. But we're all family here. We help each other, right, Emily?" Emily nodded, her rehearsed smile perfectly aligned with his. "Family first, always." I thought about Grandma's words in the diary. About masks and wolves and puppets. "Actually," I said, meeting Mark's gaze, "I've been thinking about what family really means." The air shifted. Mark's smile tightened just slightly. Mom looked like she wanted to disappear into her wine glass. Emily's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "And what conclusion have you reached?" Mark asked, his voice carrying that dangerous undertone I'd learned to recognize. I thought about the diary upstairs, about Grandma's warnings. About all the subtle ways my life had changed since Mark and Emily moved in 3 years ago. About how Mom seemed to shrink a little more each day. "I think," I said carefully, "that sometimes family isn't about sharing everything. Sometimes it's about protecting what matters most." Mark's knife scraped against his plate, a harsh sound in the sudden silence. "Interesting perspective," he said. "We'll have to discuss this further." I nodded, but inside, something had shifted. Grandma's diary wasn't just a collection of memories, it was a warning, a weapon, and a shield. And I would need all three to survive what was coming. That night, I pulled out the diary again, turning to the last page. There, in shaky writing dated just before her death, Grandma had left one final message. "Remember, dear heart, the truth is like water. No matter how hard they try to contain it, it always finds a way to break free. Emily's voice carried across the kitchen like honey dripping over broken glass. Mom, you should have seen how proud Mrs. Thompson was of my volunteer work. She said I'm exactly the kind of student colleges look for. I gripped my coffee mug tighter, watching Mom beam at Emily while she packed our lunches. 3 months ago, I'd started that literacy program at the community center. Now Emily was running it, somehow making it seem like her idea all along. That's wonderful, sweetie, Mom said, adding an extra cookie to Emily's lunch bag. Audrey, why don't you get involved too? Emily could show you the ropes. The coffee burned bitter in my throat. I'm busy with my own projects. Like what? Emily's innocent tone could fool anyone who hadn't lived with her for 3 years. Reading old books in your room all day. Grandma's diary felt heavy in my backpack. I'd been carrying it everywhere since finding it, afraid of leaving it where others might discover it. Speaking of college applications, Mark strode in, already dressed for work in his expensive suit. Linda, we need to discuss some financial planning. The market's been unpredictable lately. Mom's shoulders tensed. Not now, Mark. Actually, I cut in, I'd like to hear about these financial plans. Mark's smile didn't waver, but something flickered in his eyes. Adult concerns, Audrey. Nothing for you to worry about. Except it's my college fund you keep trying to reorganize. The kitchen went silent. Emily suddenly became very interested in her phone, but I caught her watching from the corner of her eye. Your mother and I are trying to secure everyone's future, Mark said. The family stability affects you too. Funny how family stability always seems to involve my inheritance. Audrey, enough. Mom slammed the lunch bag down. Mark has done nothing but try to help this family. You've been impossible lately. Have I? I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Or am I just the only one seeing things clearly? What's that supposed to mean? Emily asked, her voice sharp despite her practiced concerned expression. I thought about Grandma's warnings in the diary. About wolves and masks. About Emily becoming Mark's perfect puppet. It means I'm tired of pretending, I said. Tired of watching everyone act like everything's fine when it's not. When was the last time Mom made any decision without checking with Mark first? When was the last time Emily didn't swoop in and take credit for someone else's work? That's not fair. Emily's mask slipped, showing real anger. Just because you're jealous. Jealous? I laughed, but it came out harsh. Of what? Your desperate need for approval. The way you mirror everything Mark does like some trained. Enough. Mom stepped between us. Audrey, apologize to your sister right now. Stepsister, I corrected, watching Emily's face flush. And I'm done apologizing for telling the truth. I grabbed my backpack and headed for the door. Behind me, I heard Mark's calm voice, let her go, Linda. She'll come around once she realizes how childish she's being. Outside, my phone buzzed with a text from Chloe, coffee before class. 20 minutes later, I sat across from my best friend at our favorite cafe, spilling everything about the diary and the morning's confrontation. They're gaslighting you, Chloe said, stirring her latte. Classic manipulation tactics. Make you doubt yourself, make you look like the unreasonable one. I know. But Mom can't see it. Or won't see it. What are you going to do? I pulled out Grandma's diary, opening to a page I'd marked. There's something here about Mark's previous business ventures. Grandma was investigating him before she died. I think she left me breadcrumbs to follow. Be careful, Chloe warned. People like Mark don't like their secrets exposed. People like Mark don't expect 17-year-old girls to be threats, I said, remembering another of Grandma's entries. The best revenge is the one they never see coming. My phone lit up with a text from Mom. We need to talk when you get home. Let them think I'm just being difficult, I told Chloe, sliding the diary back into my bag. Let them think I'm the problem child who'll eventually fall in line. They have no idea what's coming. The papers scattered across my bedroom floor told a story Grandma Hazel had pieced together before her death. Bank statements, business records, newspaper clippings, all pointing to a pattern I couldn't ignore. Mark's previous business ventures had all ended the same way: bankruptcy filings, disappeared investments, ruined partners. You won't believe what I found, Chloe's voice crackled through my phone. Mark's old partner in Seattle. He lost everything. House, savings, even his marriage fell apart. I picked up a faded article showing a younger Mark shaking hands with a business partner. Let me guess, right after Mark got access to the company accounts. Exactly. And get this, his partner's daughter had a trust fund. Somehow, that vanished too. My stomach clenched. Through my open window, I heard Emily's laugh floating up from the backyard, where she was helping Mark with his precious rose garden. Always the perfect daughter, always in the right place at the right time. I need to check something, I told Chloe, ending the call. The family computer sat in Mark's home office. I wasn't supposed to be in here, but he and Emily were still outside, and Mom was at work. The password was easy, Emily's birthday, because Mark's ego wouldn't let him imagine anyone outsmarting him. Bank statements filled the screen. My college fund had been steady for years, built from Dad's life insurance and Grandma's careful investments. But recent transactions showed small withdrawals, carefully timed and disguised as administrative fees. Looking for something, I spun around. Emily stood in the doorway, garden shears still in hand. Funny, I said, I was about to ask you the same thing. Dad won't like you snooping. Your dad won't like a lot of things I'm about to do. Emily stepped into the office, closing the door behind her. For once, her perfect pose slipped. You don't understand. He's trying to protect us. Protect us. By stealing my college fund. It's not stealing if it's family. She sounded like she was reciting a line she'd heard 1,000 times. We need that money. Dad's investments failed. Like all his others. I turned the screen toward her. Like what happened in Seattle. Emily's face went pale. How did you? Grandma knew. She left me everything I needed to expose him. You can't. Real fear crept into her voice. He'll lose everything. We'll lose everything. You mean you'll lose your perfect little life? Your chance to be Daddy's favorite? You think I want this? Emily's mask cracked completely. You think I enjoy playing this role? He'll destroy us if we don't play along. Ask my real mom how that worked out for her. That stopped me cold. What? Why do you think I try so hard to be perfect? Her hands trembled around the garden shears. I watched him systematically destroy my mother when she tried to stand up to him. Now she can barely hold down a job, and everyone thinks she's crazy. The office door opened. Mark stood there, his garden smile still in place. Girls? Everything okay in here? Emily's mask snapped back on instantly. Just showing Audrey those college brochures, Dad. How thoughtful. His eyes locked onto the computer screen. Though it seems Audrey's found something else to research. Just doing some financial planning, I said, matching his tone. Lots to consider about my future. Indeed. He stepped aside, gesturing toward the door. Emily, your mother needs help with dinner. Audrey, a word. Emily shot me a look I couldn't quite read before slipping out. Mark closed the door. "You're so much like your grandmother," he said, his voice soft. "She never could leave well enough alone either." "Is that why she died so suddenly?" His smile didn't waver. "Careful, Audrey. Some accusations can't be taken back. Some actions can't either." He leaned against his desk, studying me. "You have two choices. Work with this family, or work against it. But remember, you're 17. No one will believe you over a respected businessman. Ask Emily's mother how that works out." I stood up, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "You're right about one thing. I am like my grandmother. And she left me more than just her diary." For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across Mark's face. I walked out, but his words followed me, along with Emily's warning. I had the evidence, but using it would destroy more than just Mark. The question was, how many casualties was I willing to risk in my pursuit of justice? The cemetery was empty except for the groundskeeper in the distance, methodically trimming around headstones. I knelt before Grandma Hazel's grave, placing fresh lavender, her favorite, against the cold marble. "I found Emily's mom," I said quietly, as if Grandma could hear. "She's working at a diner in Portland." Mark didn't just take her money, he took her credibility, her confidence, everything. My phone buzzed. Another message from Mom: "Please come home. We can work this out." I switched it off, pulling out the diary instead. A folded paper slipped from between its pages, a letter I hadn't noticed before, dated just weeks before Grandma's death. "My dearest Audrey. If you're reading this, you've discovered what Mark really is. But be careful, revenge isn't a straight line. It's a labyrinth, and the monster at its center isn't always who we think it is." The sound of footsteps on grass made me turn. Chloe approached, carrying 2 coffee cups. "Thought I'd find you here," she said, handing me one. "Emily called." I stiffened. What did she want? "To warn you. Mark's meeting with the bank tomorrow about your trust fund. He's got papers with your mom's signature." The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. "That's impossible." "She wouldn't." "She did." Emily's voice came from behind us. She stood there, looking smaller somehow without her usual perfect posture. "I saw her sign them last night. He convinced her it was the only way to keep the family together." "There is no family," I said. "Just Mark's latest victims." Emily sat on the grass beside me, not caring about her expensive jeans. "I talked to my mom yesterday. First time in 3 years. That made me look at her." "What?" "After what you said, I needed to know the truth. God, Audrey, the things he did to her. The ways he twisted everything until she doubted her own sanity." Emily's hands shook. "She told me about the others too. Not just business partners, families. He destroys entire families." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because he's not just after your college fund anymore. The bank's investigating some irregularities. He needs a bigger cover story." Emily met my eyes. "He's going to say Grandma Hazel was senile at the end. That she made irrational financial decisions. He's already got doctor's statements ready." The world tilted sideways. "He's going to destroy her reputation. Unless you sign over everything willingly." Emily pulled out a folder. "These are the real documents he doesn't want found. Bank transfers, forged signatures, everything. I took them from his safe when he was showering." Chloe whistled softly. "That's enough to put him away for years." "Or enough to get someone killed," I said, remembering Grandma's letter. The monster at the center of the labyrinth. He's got Mom completely convinced, Emily continued. She'll testify about Hazel's mental state if he asks. She doesn't even realize what she's doing anymore. I traced Grandma's name on the headstone. What about you? These documents implicate you too. I know. Emily's voice cracked. But maybe that's my punishment for playing along for so long. For helping him hurt people like my mom. The groundskeeper was getting closer, his trimmer buzzing methodically. Each headstone he passed was like another second ticking down. We need to be smart about this, I said. Grandma wrote that revenge isn't a straight line. Maybe she meant we need to think like Mark, see all the angles, anticipate the traps. Whatever you decide, Emily said, standing up, do it fast. The bank meeting's at 9 tomorrow morning. She walked away, leaving the folder beside me. Chloe picked it up, flipping through the papers. Holy shit, she breathed. This is everything we need. But I was reading Grandma's letter again. The monster at its center isn't always who we think it is. No, I said. It's not everything. We're still missing something. I stood up, brushing grass from my knees. And we've got until 9 tomorrow morning to figure out what it is. The groundskeeper reached the next row of graves, his trimmer cutting through overgrown grass with mechanical precision. Like Mark, methodically clearing away anything that didn't fit his perfect picture. But sometimes, I thought, what survives in those wild, overlooked spaces is exactly what you need to bring the whole system down. 8 hours before the bank meeting, I stood in my bedroom, staring at the walls covered with photos and memories. Mom appeared in the doorway, her face drawn with exhaustion. The papers are ready, she said. Mark just needs your signature. I kept packing my backpack with essentials, clothes, documents, Grandma's diary. Did you even read what you signed? Of course I did. She stepped inside, touching a photo of us at the beach, years ago. This is about protecting our family. No, it's about protecting Mark. I yanked the photo down. Did you know about Emily's mom? About what he did to her? Mom's hand froze midair. That woman was unstable. Because he made her that way. I turned to face her. Just like he's doing to you. That's different. Mark loves me. He loves us. He loves what we can give him. I pulled out Emily's folder. Look at these. Really look. She pushed the folder away. I don't need to see more of your accusations. Either sign the papers, or what? You'll throw me out. Choose him over your own daughter. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Downstairs, I heard Mark's voice, followed by Emily's quieter response. You don't understand, Mom whispered. The things he's done for us. The things he's done to us, I corrected. God, Mom, when did you become so afraid of standing alone? Her face hardened. You sound just like your father, always thinking you know better than everyone else. Look where that got him. The words hit like a slap. Dad had died trying to expose corruption at his company. The official report said car accident, but Grandma never believed it. Mark's waiting downstairs, Mom said. This ends tonight, one way or another. I shouldered my backpack. You're right about that. The living room felt like a courtroom. Mark sat in his armchair like a judge, papers spread on the coffee table. Emily perched on the couch, not meeting my eyes. Audrey, Mark smiled. Let's put this unpleasantness behind us. I dropped Emily's folder on top of his papers. Like you did with Emily's mom. His smile didn't waver, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Emily, perhaps you should go to your room. She stays, I said. She's part of this too. Part of what? He leaned forward. Your ridiculous conspiracy theories. Your grandmother's paranoid delusions. My grandmother was protecting me from you. I pulled out my phone, showing the screen. Just like Emily's mom tried to protect her. She recorded everything, by the way. Our whole conversation yesterday. Interesting stuff about document forgery and witness manipulation. Mark's facade cracked slightly. Emily made a small sound, somewhere between a gasp and a whimper. Linda, Mark's voice hardened. Control your daughter. Mom stepped forward, but stopped when I held up my hand. Here's what's going to happen, I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. I'm leaving. You can keep your forged papers and your lies. But if anything happens to Grandma's reputation, if you try to touch my inheritance, if you so much as breathe wrong in my direction, everything comes out. The recordings, the documents, all of it. You're 17, Mark sneered. A child throwing a tantrum. A child who learned from the best manipulator she knows. I turned to Mom. I love you, but I won't let you drag me down with you. Audrey, please, she reached for me, but I stepped back. Your choice, Mom. It's always been your choice. I walked to the door, feeling their eyes on my back. Emily stood suddenly. I'm coming with you. Sit down, Mark ordered. No. Emily moved to my side. I'm done being your puppet. Mark stood, mask completely gone now. Linda, are you going to let them destroy everything we've built? Mom looked between us, tears streaming down her face. But she didn't move. I opened the door, the night air hitting my face like freedom. Behind me, Mark's voice carried one last threat, you'll regret this. No, I said, not turning back. You will. Emily and I walked into the darkness, leaving behind the house of cards Mark had built. It wasn't the end, not by far. But it was a beginning. And sometimes, that's all the revenge you need. Chloe's studio apartment felt smaller with 3 people crammed inside. Emily slept on the pull-out couch, while I stared at the ceiling from my air mattress, watching shadows dance across unfamiliar walls. My phone buzzed again, the 20th call from Mom today. I silenced it without looking. Your mom keeps texting me too, Chloe said from her bed. Mark's telling everyone you had some kind of breakdown. That you're unstable, like your dad was before. Before his accident. The words tasted like ash. Funny how history repeats itself. A knock at the door made us all freeze. Emily sat up, clutching her blanket. He found us. But when Chloe opened the door, it was Mom who stood there, mascara streaked down her face. Please, she said. Just listen. I almost said no, but something in her voice stopped me. She stepped inside, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Mark's frozen all our accounts, she said. He says he can prove you and Emily stole documents from his office. He's pressing charges. He can't, Emily started. He already has. Mom's hands shook as she pulled out her phone, showing us the email from Mark's lawyer. The police will be here by morning. He's reporting the theft of confidential business documents, plus harassment and extortion attempts. My stomach dropped. The documents. The recording. Everything we thought would protect us was being turned against us. That's not all, Mom continued. He's filing to have Hazel's will contested. Says he has proof she wasn't mentally competent when she changed it. Changed it. The room tilted sideways. What do you mean, changed it? 3 days before she died, Hazel modified her will. Mark found out yesterday, she left everything to you through a separate trust. One he can't touch. Mom looked at me with something like fear. He's furious, Audrey. I've never seen him like this. Emily made a small sound. He'll destroy us all. No, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. We have evidence. Evidence that's now stolen property, Chloe pointed out. He's framing you for corporate espionage. That's federal charges. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number this time. The text made my blood freeze, like father, like daughter. Some accidents are inevitable. I showed it to Mom. All the color drained from her face. Oh God, she whispered. Your father. I always wondered, but I never wanted to believe. We need to leave, Emily said suddenly. All of us. Right now. And go where? I asked. We're 17. We have no money, no. Another knock at the door. Harder this time. Police. Open up. Emily grabbed her bag. Chloe pointed to the fire escape. Mom stood paralyzed. Mom, I grabbed her arm. Come with us. She pulled away. I can't. He'll find us. He always finds. The door shuddered under another knock. Last chance. Open up. Mom pushed me toward the window. Go. I'll stall them. Mom. Please, she said. Let me protect you this one time. I heard the door starting to give way as Chloe helped Emily onto the fire escape. The metal creaked under our feet as we climbed down, Mom's voice drifting from above, officers, thank goodness you're here. We ran through back alleys, the sound of sirens growing distant. My phone buzzed one last time, another unknown number. Running only makes you look guilty. Ask your father how that worked out. 3 teenage girls with no money, no plan, and a powerful man determined to destroy us. Everything we tried to use against Mark had become a weapon in his hands. Even Grandma's final gift, the changed will, had only made things worse. What do we do now? Emily asked, her voice small in the darkness. I touched Grandma's diary in my pocket, thinking about her words. The monster at its center isn't always who we think it is. We'd been playing Mark's game all along, trying to beat him at manipulation and threats. Maybe that was our mistake. We stop running, I said. We stop hiding. And we do the one thing Mark never expects his victims to do. What's that? We fight in the open. Where everyone can see. But as police sirens wailed in the distance, I wondered if we'd live long enough to see morning. The local news station's lobby felt too bright, too exposed. I clutched Grandma's diary while Emily paced beside me, both of us watching the entrance for any sign of Mark. He'll try to stop us, Emily said. That's what we're counting on. The morning news was already playing on the lobby TV. Mark's face filled the screen, his practiced concerned father expression perfect as he spoke about his troubled stepdaughter. Her mental health issues, her dangerous delusions. The elevator dinged. Mom stepped out, looking like she hadn't slept in days. He knows you're here, she said. He's on his way. Good. I handed her the diary. Everything's marked. Dad's accident, Emily's mom, all of it. The real documents are already uploaded to 3 different cloud servers. The lobby doors burst open. Mark strode in, flanked by 2 lawyers. His smile didn't quite mask the rage in his eyes. Audrey, Emily, thank God. He moved toward us, arms open. We've been so worried. Save it, I said. The reporter's waiting upstairs. She's very interested in hearing about your investment strategies. His smile tightened. You really want to do this? Destroy your mother's marriage. Emily's future. All because of some teenage rebellion. No, Emily stepped forward. Because of what you did to my mother. To Audrey's father. To everyone who ever trusted you. Linda, Mark turned to Mom. Control your daughters. They're not property to control, Mom said quietly. I see that now. The elevator dinged again. A woman with a press badge stepped out, followed by a camera crew. And behind them, my heart stopped, Emily's mother, Catherine. Mark's facade cracked. Catherine. You. Hello, Mark. Her voice shook slightly, but she stood straight. The reporter wants to hear about our marriage. About how you convinced everyone I was crazy when I discovered your embezzlement schemes. You were unstable. The only unstable thing, I cut in, was your house of cards. And now everyone gets to watch it fall. Mark moved faster than I expected, grabbing for the diary in Mom's hands. But Emily was faster, stepping between them. Touch her, Emily said, and I'll add a salt to the story. The camera was rolling now. Mark's perfect mask slipped completely, showing the desperation beneath. You ungrateful little, he reached for Emily. Mark Davidson. A new voice. 2 FBI agents emerged from the stairwell. We'd like to discuss some irregularities in your investment records. Everything happened at once. Mark lunged for the exit. The agents moved to intercept. Mom opened the diary to the marked pages, hands steady as she read aloud the details of years of manipulation and fraud. Wait, I called as the agents cuffed Mark. There's one more thing. I approached him, keeping just out of reach. Grandma knew what you were planning. She knew you'd try to destroy her reputation to get control of the trust fund. That's why she left a video testimony with her lawyer, detailing everything she discovered about you. Including what really happened to my father. The color drained from his face. For the first time, I saw a real fear in his eyes. You're just like your father, he spat. Always thinking you're smarter than everyone else. No, I said. I'm like my grandmother. I learned to play the long game. As the agents led him away, Emily collapsed into her mother's arms. Mom stood frozen, watching her marriage dissolve in front of rolling cameras. Was there really a video? Chloe whispered. No, I said quietly. But he'll confess everything trying to prove there isn't one. That's what Grandma meant about the monster in the labyrinth. Sometimes the best trap is the one they build themselves. The reporter approached, microphone ready. Audrey, would you like to tell your side of the story? I looked at Mom, who nodded slightly, then at Emily and Catherine, holding each other like they'd never let go again. Yes, I said, thinking of Grandma's words about truth being like water. I think it's time everyone heard the whole story. Behind me, the lobby TV still played Mark's earlier interview, his lies about my instability now a testament to his own downfall. Sometimes, I realized, the best revenge isn't about destroying someone, it's about letting them destroy themselves while the whole world watches. The autumn wind scattered leaves across Grandma Hazel's headstone as I placed fresh lavender against the marble. Behind me, Emily and Catherine waited quietly, giving me space. The trust fund paperwork came through, I said to the stone. Everything exactly as you planned it. Though I think you knew all along I wouldn't need it. My acceptance letter to Dad's alma mater had arrived yesterday. Full scholarship. No trust fund required. Ready? Emily asked as I stood. Almost. I pulled out Grandma's diary, now worn and familiar. I want to leave this here. Where it belongs. You sure? After everything. It served its purpose. I traced the leather cover one last time. Some weapons aren't meant to be kept. Catherine touched my shoulder. Your mother's waiting at the cafe. The small coffee shop felt different from the last time I'd met Mom here, months ago. She sat at a corner table, looking smaller without Mark's shadow looming over her. "The house sold," she said as we sat down. "Above asking price." "That's good. I found an apartment near the college." She twisted her empty ring finger. "In case you ever want to visit." Emily squeezed my hand under the table. We'd both learned that healing doesn't follow a straight line. "Maybe during winter break," I said. "If you're ready." Mom nodded, understanding all I wasn't saying. "I've been seeing a therapist. Learning to recognize the patterns. How I let myself become exactly what Mark needed me to be. Like father, like daughter," I quoted his threatening text from that night. Except he was wrong. Dad died trying to expose the truth. I lived to finish what he started. "Mark's sentencing is next week," Catherine said quietly. "They want us all to testify." "No." I surprised myself with how firm my voice was. "Let his own actions testify. We don't owe him any more of our words." The cafe door chimed. Chloe walked in, carrying a newspaper. She dropped it on our table without a word. Mark's face stared up from the business section. Not his mugshot, an old photo from his glory days. The headline read, "Davidson Financial Empire Crumbles, Former Partners Come Forward." "They're calling it a house of cards," Chloe said. "Built on stolen trust funds and broken families." "Poetic," Emily muttered. I pushed the paper away. Let someone else tell his story. I'm done carrying it. Mom reached across the table, her hand stopping just short of mine. "Your grandmother would be proud." She was proud all along. I met her eyes. That's why she left the breadcrumbs for me to follow. Not because she wanted revenge, but because she knew I'd choose truth over comfort. Catherine gathered her purse. "Emily's art class starts soon." "The one at the community center?" Mom asked. Emily nodded. "I'm teaching it now. Turns out I like creating things more than destroying them." We stood to leave, but Mom caught my arm. "Audrey. That night, when you said I had a choice. You were right. I'm sorry it took me so long to make it." I hugged her, briefly but real. Some choices take time to grow into. Outside, the autumn wind had picked up, carrying the scent of wood smoke and change. Emily and Catherine headed for their car, while Chloe waited to drive me to my afternoon classes. "You never told them about the last entry," Chloe said as we walked. "The one Hazel wrote about Mark investigating your dad's accident. Some truths don't need to be spoken to be understood." I watched a leaf spiral past. Besides, Mark's confession during his plea deal said enough. "And the revenge you wanted?" I thought about Grandma's words about labyrinths and monsters. About how sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone, but about building something stronger from the ruins they leave behind. "I got something better," I said. "I got free." The wind caught my hair, carrying away the last traces of the girl who'd once believed family meant accepting chains. Somewhere, I thought I could hear Grandma Hazel laughing, pleased that her final lesson had been learned. True strength isn't in the revenge you take, but in the life you choose to build afterward.